Thanks for watching today's sourdough baking recipe. As you can see, this bakes a beautiful sourdough loaf with a fabulous caramelized crust and incredible flavor, and it's extremely easy to make. I tried to summarize as much as possible. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and let me know how your sourdough journey is turning out. So the day before you bake your bread, you're going to go ahead and feed your starter with enough flour so that you can use it in this bake. So I go ahead and add in 50 grams of flour, 50 grams of water into my stored starter, and I leave it overnight to activate and wake up. So this loaf you can make starting any time in the morning, really. This particular loaf I didn't start until lunchtime. And you want to go ahead and take 100 grams of starter with 350 grams of water and mix them up. And then add those into 400 grams of white flour, plain white or bread flour, 100 grams of whole wheat flour, and 10 grams of salt. And that is your full mixture. Then all we're going to do is combine these ingredients. We're not trying to do any stretch and folds or anything like that at this point. We just want to make sure that all the flour is dissolved into the water and that we don't have any dry flour remaining. And so that's it. And then we're just going to go ahead and cover this and leave it for 30 minutes. And then we'll do our first stretch and fold. So it's now been 30 minutes and we're going to do our first stretch and fold. And how we do that is we just want to wet our hands and grab the dough at the edge and kind of pull it up and fold it over. Rotate slightly, pull it up and fold it over. And just continue going around. And we don't just stop with one rotation. We just keep going until we feel like it's really changed. You can even see now with just one rotation how that dough has begun to change. And sometimes you'll even have to hold it down as you give it a stretch. And what we're doing now is creating structure in this dough. And so keep doing that for, a minute or two, give it a good amount of stretch and folds. So we're going to continue doing a stretch and fold every 30 minutes for 3 hours. And just every 30 minutes, come back to the dough, and you can see right here how that dough is stretching and holding together and forming structure. So we're going to keep doing this, like I said, every 30 minutes for 3 hours. And you'll notice on some of the later stretch and folds that the dough is building some air inside it. It's getting much lighter and more volume. And so we do want to be a little gentle with it. We don't want to flatten it, but at the same time, we're going to definitely continue. And then we'll start to do some of these, they call them slap and folds, where we pick it up, hold it towards the front third, and just kind of let it stretch down and fold it over. And just keep doing that back and forth and continue that for, a good few minutes. We want to give it a good amount of structure and strength. And you'll find that if you do this, your finished product on your bread will be far superior than if you don't do that. And you can see how shiny the surface is on this, and it's really coming together at this point. So there we are. At the end of our 3 hours of stretch and folds, we're ready to turn this dough out onto a work surface. So this is the first time that we've floured any surfaces. I do flour the dough because that will rest on the bottom, and I flour the work surface. And all I'm doing right now with the spatula is turning the dough out onto the work surface. So we just kind of scrape it out, put it on the work surface, and perhaps put a little extra flour around it. And then we're going to grab it and fold it onto itself. So start at one side and then the other, go around 90 degrees, do the same thing, and just kind of go around the corners, pulling from underneath, folding up, and you'll feel the tightness forming on this. Occasionally, you will need to sprinkle a little extra flour on the board, but it's probably not sticking at this point, so it's maybe not too necessary. So just go ahead and keep folding like that, and then tuck it in like that and give it a bit of structure and shape. And then we're just going to place it on our board for 30 minutes, covered. You can put a tea towel over it. I actually just use paper towels on this, and we just store it. So now after 30 minutes, when you take off your paper towel, you'll see it's still retaining some shape. If it flops out too much, then you need to do that process again, that last step. But we're going to take our banneton and prepare it. Once again, I'm big on the paper towels, so I just put those in my banneton. I found that out of anything, the flour, the dough sticks less to the paper towels than it does to anything else. And so I well flour the surface of the bread and the banneton, and then what we're going to do is flip it over and start shaping our bread. So we'll kind of pull it into a bit of a rectangle, and then we fold it over into the middle, fold it over again, and then we're going to roll it up from one end to the other and just kind of pull it tight as we're doing it to create some strength. And this is creating a roll, essentially. And then we're going to just tuck the ends in if you like. It doesn't really matter if you do or you don't, but if you prefer, the ends to be hidden, you can tuck them in like that. And then put some flour on and deposit that into your banneton. And once we've done that, we will cover the bread with I actually use a shower cap. I find it to be probably the best thing out there. But you can cover it with like a damp towel or something like that. And then we leave this to prove for about 4 hours. Luckily I have a proving function on my oven, so I'll put it in there. But you want it to be at a nice warm temperature and leave it for 4 hours. Here is how it looks after 4 hours. You can see it has risen quite a bit. It's filled the entire banneton. And so this is a point right now where you could bake it. I actually store it overnight in the fridge at this point. And so this is me taking it out of the fridge after an overnight storage. But if you wanted to bake it right away, you could do. If not, put it in the fridge, come back in the morning and bake it. So when I take it out of the fridge, I turn it out of the banneton onto parchment paper. I have my baking vessel in the oven at 500 degrees, preheating. And once I put the bread in, I immediately lower it to 450. So we'll go ahead and score the top of the bread. You can develop your own scoring patterns and techniques. And the bread really needs this to be able to get the oven spring. And we take out our preheated Dutch oven or whatever you're using to cook your bread in, and put this bread into it, and then into the oven with the lid on at 450 degrees. So we start out at 500 degrees, and then we lower it to 450 when we put the bread in. So the bread is not baking at the 500 degrees. And that goes in covered for 20 minutes. And so go ahead and put it in, set yourself a timer. At the end of 20 minutes, you remove the lid, and you'll see how it looks. Sometimes I'll also slide some ice cubes into this pan, and that creates a little extra steam. But basically, by covering it and creating the steam, it allows the bread to rise because it's not fully forming a hard crust yet. And then the next 20 minutes uncovered is where the magic occurs. And as you can see here, we've got a beautifully caramelized and crusty loaf that's 40 minutes in the oven. Pull it out and put it onto a drying rack and allow it to cool so that some air can form under it. So if you've enjoyed the video, please subscribe and let me know how your sourdough bread is turning out. Thanks for watching.